Invite you to come on in and take a seat. Grace to you and peace. My name is Rob McClellan. I'm a pastor here at Westminster, and I'm pleased to welcome you into this space, into this moment, and into this gathering to honor the life of Dean Norris. We are pleased to host this service, and I want to make it clear from the very beginning that you are welcome here. No matter where you're coming from, no matter what tradition you may be coming out of, or whether you belong to any formal religious or spiritual tradition at all, what will make this gathering sacred is not our common creed, but our common intention today: to pay respects, to remember, to celebrate, to grieve, to support those who ache at the loss, to share memories, so you can be at ease in this place. This is a time we've set apart for this special occasion, and you're simply invited to show up however works best for you, for there's no right way to do it. As the service unfolds, we'll have a number of musical offerings as well as a number of speakers. I'll tell the speakers now that when it's your turn to come up, I won't introduce every person one at a time. Simply come up and you can speak from either side, wherever you're most comfortable. The mics are pretty good, but you still need to project. It's okay to adjust them to your height as well and aim them right at your mouth. We want everyone to be able to hear, and we want you to be on microphone because there are a number of people who will be watching online, and this service is being recorded and will be uploaded to the church's YouTube page as well, so those who aren't here in body can join at a time and a location that works for them. Following the service, everyone's invited into a reception in Finley Hall, which is just in the next building, straight through these doors and to the left, where you can greet one another, share in some pictures and some refreshments then. And now let us simply take one brief moment to fully arrive here, to be present for whatever is stirring in us and perhaps flowing between us. And now let us begin in earnest with some sacred music.
My name is Lynn McAleer. Dee and I were good friends for 55 years. Like many of you here, I so admired and loved Dee. I was honored when I was asked to come and sing some Threshold Choir songs for her, and that was the day before she died. Threshold Choir offers the gift of song primarily to those who are near or at the end of their lives. When we're invited, we visit a bedside in groups of 2 or 3 a cappella singers. We sing comforting songs with simple messages of love and kindness. And through our gentle music, we seek to create an oasis of peace at a very difficult time. Threshold Choir has no religious affiliation, but we do honor all spiritual paths. Our singing is our gift, There is no fee. If you're interested in learning a little more about Threshold Choir, there's some information on the table in the back with our website, and you'll learn that there are thousands of threshold singers around the world in many different chapters, different countries. So my choir friends and I today are going to sing 3 of the songs that I sang to Dee that day. The first song we will sing, Just Us. The second and third songs are very easy to learn. It's one sentence sung different ways over and over. And we invite you to please join us if you would like to sing after you pick up the music. So you're invited to sing with us. The last thing I want to say is there will be a pause between songs. And we ask you to remain silent. And that will let the words and the music settle in.
Two simple readings from two great Celtic teachers. From On the Death of the Beloved by John O'Donohue. Though we need to weep your loss, you dwell in that safe place in our hearts, where no storm or night or pain can reach you. Let us not look for you only in memory, where we would grow lonely without you. You would want us to find you in presence, beside us when beauty brightens, when kindness glows and music echoes eternal tones. When orchids brighten the earth, darkest winter has turned to spring. May this dark grief flower with hope in every heart that loves you. May you continue to inspire us to enter each day with a generous heart, to serve the call of courage and love, until we see your beautiful face again in that land where there is no more separation, where all tears will be wiped from our mind and where we will never lose you again. And a prayer for light from John Philip Newell. I watch this morning for the light that the darkness has not overcome. I watch for the fire that was in the beginning and that burns still in the brilliance of the rising sun. I watch for the glow of life that gleams in the growing earth and glistens in sea and sky. I watch for your light, O God, in the eyes of every living creature, and in the ever-living flame of my own soul. If the grace of seeing were mine this day, I would glimpse you in all that lives. Grant me the grace of seeing this day. Grant me the grace of seeing. Now I invite you to join in a hymn. The hymns are in those purple books in your pew racks in front of you. Unless you're in the front, then it's beneath you. Hymn number 1-4. Feel may be seated. And now for our first two speakers, I invite you forward.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here to share with you the celebration of life with D. Holden Norris. At the recent 36th International Symposium on ALS MND, there was a wonderful eulogy presented on D as part of the awarding of the Forbes Norris Award at that occasion. And many people who knew of D are sad that they couldn't come because of business reasons to this celebration. I've known Dee for almost 50 years, and I think most of the doctors in the room who know her know that she can tell you what you should do and how to do it, and that was part of her being a wonderful big sister to a bunch of perhaps unruly doctors. But she was very helpful for us because we shared a fellow. The Beijing 3 Hospital in China is a major place where ALS research comes. We had one fellow in the early 90s. He came to Wisconsin, then came here, and she was very helpful in helping the family aggregate and work into the local population. But I think the most important thing to remember about Dee was that she was a special person in terms of caregiving. And I wanted to just highlight from the homage that I wrote that at the Hôpital Salpêtrière in Paris, which was the home of ALS and where it was first described by Charcot, there is a no Charcot building. But there is a Babinski building. Babinski was a famous neurosurgeon in World War I, and he deserved his recognition. He has a sign that we use all the time in neurology. But Charcot felt it was important to recognize what in those days was called the nurse surveillante, the surveillance nurse in the hospital. And what Margaret Botard did was sort of run the place probably a little bit like D. Norris, and is famous for helping the doctors come back into the hospital after hours when they were out at parties and things like that. But she ran a tight ship, and she was recognized. And what Charcot said was, on behalf of the physician of this hospital, whom you have so intelligently, so generously seconded to the accomplishment of their task, on behalf of the innumerable patients whose pain you have relieved, whom you have loved, uplifted even, and many times, who can say, without any other motivation than your love of humanity, patients you have brought back to the straight and narrow. I thank you on the behalf of these people. And that was their dedication of the Margaret Botard Hospital building in the Hôpital Saint-Pétri, which is still part of the ALS Center there. Our love for all of what D. Holden Norris did for all of us, we greatly expect. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm John Katz from Dee's named Forbes Norris Center. And before I start, does anybody have reading glasses that I could borrow? Thank you. Because I just realized I can't see. Much better. Usually, when I speak, I don't like to write anything down because it doesn't come easy. And the last time I wrote things down, I practically had a panic attack reading because I lost contact with the audience. But Susan told me to write everything down and try not to be funny at all. So here we go. I'm going to do my best. But what I really did is I wanted to honor Dee, obviously, because that's what we're doing here. And this is my version of the way that I saw Dee. It's not going to be maybe everybody's version of it, but there's a lot I want to say. I love Dee. And I'll start off by saying my wife, Susan, Dee, and our dog, Hudson, would spend a lot of time together, usually after work in the evenings, and Dee would come over, and often for what was supposed to be an hour would turn into inevitably 2 hours or 2.5 hours, and she would come over and she would plop herself down on a couch in our house, and Susan would get some charcuterie together. We'd get some wine, and it was nice. But I dreaded, because I knew she was going to drill me on everything because she cared so much about the clinic, and she wanted everything to be perfect. But the other thing that I dreaded is she would love our dog more than anything, our dog Hudson. And one of the big events was for the dog to see her and for her to feed the dog. And she would come over with a few treats, and few is in quotes, because she would give the dog so many treats that the dog would go out in the backyard and vomit. And then the dog would, being a dog, would come back and start begging to do more. So the whole night would start off with this great wine, charcuterie, and begging of a dog, and we would all be super happy, and it was great. Susan loved Dee because she was a wise woman, and Susan looked up to her, and it was great seeing those two together. And I would then have the third role of the thing, which is hearing Dee talk about how much she cared about Forbes Norris and all of you people. And she wanted the best for the disease, which was very important to her, and she wanted the best for our business and our treatment of patients. And she would launch into questions and grill me. What are we doing? Is Big Sutter helping us, or is it making us hard? How are the patients doing? How's the staff doing? What does the team need? When's the next event? Do we have a credit card yet? Is the research team talking to the clinical team? Are they seeing each other? Are we all, from the smallest person in the clinic to the biggest person in the clinic? Is everybody happy? And it was great. She cared a lot. And then when the business was done and the dog food was gone, then things got quiet and we would talk. And this is really the best part of Dee, because she would tell us, I think, some stories that we'd hear 500 times, the same story over and over. She always launched into the same thing. And the one story I enjoyed the most was when she talked about her husband, Ted. And I just loved the fact that she never forgot him. And she would tell the story over and over again. And I think to some degree she carried on so much dignity after Ted passed that it meant so much to me. And I saw it as something tough, but I saw her as a person who just carried on with an unbelievable amount of dignity. And she would talk about him, and she'd have this girlish sparkle that you'd be surprising to see in an 80-year-old woman, but it was truly touching. And I just wanted to say that. And I think to a degree, everything that we have in ALS from her that Ben was talking about and everything in our clinic was sort of a love story in a way, at least the way I saw it. And that was a beautiful thing. And I was looking at some of the pictures out front, and you could always see that part of her was so important and it never went away. Now, Dee in our office was another thing, like the Dee of our office, not the Dee at our home, but the Dee at our office. And it's a rare thing to see somebody who's the founder of your center show so much dedication and just keep coming back over so much time. I just really appreciated that. And she did it not just month after month and sometimes week after week, but decade after decade. She came back. And if you think about it, most of us retire, right? We don't go back to the place that we worked. But this obviously meant so much to us, and she cared about every single person in this room. There was people like Peter Weber that she would brag about that she knew him when he was a baby. I think when he was a baby, but maybe that's when 25 years old or something. And just so proud of people like that and all the people that came and went from our clinic. She really cared about us, and that was really important. And she never gave up. And it didn't seem, we just kind of wanted to know, like, why was she doing this, right? And the easy answer is, like, to me, it was sort of the continuation of her relationship with Ted at one level, and she wanted to make sure that the clinic was doing okay, and it was touching, but there was a lot more to it also. Her persistent dedication in a way, like if you started later in her life, and at the time I came into the clinic, it was sort of like a movie where you see this person who's like showing up at your clinic all the time, and you kind of always wanted to know like what the origin story was, what was the backstory that made that person just keep showing up and showing up and showing up. The part about Ted is one part of it, but Dee was, I think, committed, in other ways. You wanted to watch her and know what it was that was driving her. And you'd look at her all the time. Like, she was such a unique person, right? She had these stories about her travels. I mean, Ben's talking about Paris, and she's throwing out continents every 5 minutes. The car she drove was interesting. She bragged about cars. I don't even think I ever actually saw her drive the car more than once or twice, but she loved that car. There was stuff in her kitchen that you just wanted to know about. There was this thing about the big reds in her wine cabinet that she brought back from Australia that we were always going to drink at some big event, and we never did it, which is sad, but it's still there. And it's just a lot about her that was just wonderful and pointless and great at the same time. And she was sharp as can be, like never got old. She was skilled. She was endlessly determined. There was 2 stories that I wanted to share that just stick in my mind, and I'll just trust I have them right, because I might not, but in all these discussions, one thing is she would every once in a while talk about what it was like being a wartime military nurse. And she rarely mentioned it, but I sensed that she might have seen the aftermaths of some really hardcore trauma and suffering, and handled it with like a lot, like right in stride, the way she would do things, and with a lot of grit. And I think that was meaningful. And had somebody, just done that, we would respect them in that quiet way we Americans admire our heroes. That would have been enough, as they say. The other story, which I definitely heard more than once, unlike the military story, was about how she was once stranded and broke overseas. And Susan would know better, because I'll get this wrong, but she may have been in Africa, but I think she was in Europe, and it may have been Portugal. And she tells this story about how she had no money, and she was like at some hotel and in all sorts of trouble at a bar. And I think she may have charmed her way through the mess, or maybe it was someone that had charmed her, and it was just luck that got her through it. I don't know for sure. But I enjoyed the way she would end this with a smile, and she had this like youthful, wide-eyed spirit, and she would just push that to you. And she gave you this sense that she just was youthful, and she never grew old, and she knew how to get out of a mess, and she knew how to smile out of a mess. Then there was Dee, that Ben was talking about as the international superstar of ALS, which we obviously have to mention. Her contributions were actually enormous. Like, I saw her as like an early settler who laid the groundwork for what would eventually become a large, prosperous city of caregivers and investigators in this really hard field and this really difficult disease. And, probably not by coincidence, but just this weekend we were all down in San Diego at the 49th annual meeting of the Motor Neuron Association. And it was touching how warmly Dee was remembered by some of the superstars of our field, not just in the speeches that were made, but in the way people were coming up to us and recalling things about Dee. The leaders spoke of her as an icon with a reverence and a warmth. She was really a big deal. People miss her. There were even people who never knew her, who just wanted to know who she was. And she had a gigantic effect on this field. And she was a warrior in this field. And I think warriors in ALS deserve all the commendation in the world, because it's such a hard disease to take care of. I think she would have wanted all of you to know that, because everybody in this room has put their heart into that disease also, and that's important. And Dee, I think in a way, is going to always be there at this meeting, hoping we all do well, watching what we do, shaping the field, and pushing us forward. Some specifics: Dee co-founded the ALS Research Foundation and served as an advisory director for more than 40 years. She helped launch the International Alliance, turning a napkin sketch into a global network. She helped shape the Forbes Norris Award, which is the award that's given annually to the top leader in ALS care, built not only on excellence, but on values, compassion, and science. She helped drive the ideas that evolved into the Western ALS Group with Dr. Miller and the California ALS Summit, which is coming up in January. So her drive really got an incredible amount accomplished in this field. Dee and Ted were the first to pioneer the idea of multidisciplinary care, which now seems obvious to us because everybody does it, but Dee was the first one to force the question, what will it take to truly care for people with ALS? And resources matter, but also a persistent belief is important for this disease, that we're going to get somewhere, and she's a big part of what started the revolution. She kept pushing, and now centers all over the world have teams of doctors, nurses, therapists, scientists, social workers, techs, administrators, philanthropists, and the patients themselves have become part of the process. So she really did an incredible job in the field. Now, from a personal standpoint, what do I remember first about joining the Forbes Norris Center? I had spent the first years of my career at Stanford and UT Southwestern, which are some pretty decent neuromuscular institutions. But stepping into the Forbes Norris Center feels different when you join that place than anything else you're used to. It's a best of breed program in a tiny little place, which you are the proverbial big fish in a small pond. And it's able to compete. Little CPMC goes shoulder to shoulder with places like Harvard, Mayo Clinic, Columbia. And Dee was always a big part of made sure our office was a special place. I want to just share with everybody like a moment for our memory, because many of us have been in that office so many times. But I just was thinking about, what it was like walking into that center on the first floor of the Stanford building, which was frankly a terrible space if you don't know anything more about it. It was a hallway, basically, or a bowling alley that happened to not have pins but had patient rooms instead. But when you walked into that place, the first thing you noticed on your right, you make a left and look up on the right, was a picture of Ted Norris. And, I always saw that as like he was sitting in a microscope, and it was part a love letter to Ted, and it was part just a compass to remember what direction we need to go and where we started. And then you walked around the corner, and there was pictures of our patients, which just meant so much, because you had these people that were really sick, yet the way that the pictures got taken, these people were so proud-looking and brave. And that meant a lot. And then, there was the 10 Commandments of ALS care on the other wall as you went down the hallway, and always sort of reminding us when you'd stop and read one of the 10 Commandments about what the mission was and what we should do. And then you had all the little other things like these pictures that patients would make with hands that don't work using computer interfaces, and beautiful art that really made you think about what you were doing. And there were signed baseballs and thank you notes everywhere, and then a tribute to the donors on the wall. So just think about that for a second, how it just brings everything together that matters in this disease. And it takes in my male chauvinistic view, it takes a woman who really cares to put something like that together, and I want to thank her for that memory. In a world of medical spaces, that really meant something, and it held a memory that reminds us of who we were and why. And then there was just Dee strolling into that space, and I want to say she adored you, Dr. Miller. You had no small task following her husband and running a center, and you did a tremendous job. And I think Dee would want to thank you over and over again for everything. Seeing them together was always inspiring. They encouraged our team to write papers, run trials, present at meetings, and advocate. And then Dee was also like a mom to the rest of us. You know, we already heard sister from Ben, but she bought lunch, she checked on the staff, she made sure we had a party at the end of the year, she got involved in some gossip, she backstabbed a little. She backstabbed more than a little. She took us to local meetings in churches, schools, garages, and many of our team has been here for decades. Some are about to be here for the 25-year mark. It's a nice place to work, in addition to everything else. And finally, I want to add one more reminder that Dee was probably the GOAT of fundraising. And for those of you who don't know what GOAT means, it means, does everybody know what GOAT, does anybody not know what GOAT means in this room? Some people don't know that, but she was the greatest of all time, maybe. And it was about heart, right? She was all about the mission, and any visitor who walked into our office knew what we were doing, and it was also clear, and it matters. And recently, in the most recent years, I watched her engage with our new generation of the philanthropy team. And these people were her people, and she wanted them to know about her old style, but she also wanted them to know that she thinks what they do is very special. And even after we moved into a bigger system with generic walls and a prettier office, but it's not the same thing anymore. Dee wants to make sure that we never forget where we started and that our spirit from that previous office never leaves us. She created energy by encouraging us, thanking us, smiling at us, and pushing us. She believed people mattered, and she knew the little things mattered. So finally, Dee was sort of Texas and California intertwined with each other. She had big ideas and a warm twang, but she was progressive and serious, and she liked wine. She glowed telling stories from around the world, usually the same ones, but always with joy and wide eyes. She understood where we have been and where we should be headed. She honored leaders, patients, and staff, and being with her felt like visiting a curator whose job was to make sure we remember. So her legacy is now in every multidisciplinary clinic. It's in every patient living with dignity and support, and it's in every recognition of leadership in our field and in every clinician and researcher building on what she began. So to Dee, thank you for your courage, vision, your stubborn hope, and for showing us what love looks like in action. We'll carry your legacy forward. Thanks.
Imagine for a moment that every ALS organization in the world is connected and pulling in the same direction towards a world free of ALS. That's exactly what Dee and others were thinking in the late 1980s. And Dee was an early architect of what became the International Alliance, helping transform an idea in 1991 into a true global network the very next year. What started as 13 countries grew to 75 associations in 39 countries today and is truly a global influence. My name is Kathy Cummings, and I'm the CEO of the International Alliance, and I'm here from Toronto, Canada, where I live, and I'm here with Pam Aston from the Motor Neuron Disease Association of England, Wales, and Northern Ireland. And the Alliance is an organization of organizations around the world who have all had the same mission that Dee did, a world free of ALS. Dee was very special to our community, a force of nature in the ALS world. I got the opportunity to share some remarks this past weekend, as you've heard, at the International Research Symposium, and there were almost 1,000 people there. For those at the symposium who didn't know Dee and never got the chance to meet her, I implored that they needed to understand just how much of what we now view as the standard of care in ALS M&D was because of Dee and Ted Norris. They believed that we could and must do better. At a moment when patients were often told to simply get their affairs in order, they transformed ALS M&D care. Her passion also shaped the most prestigious honor that we give out at the Alliance, the Forbes Norris Award, which she established in 1994 in Ted's memory. Every year when someone received this award, Dee was proud, not because their name was attached to it, but because of the values behind it, which were excellence in clinical care, compassion without compromise, and science driven by humanity. Many of the former Forbes Norris Awards winners were able to share stories and tributes with Dee prior to her passing because Dallas reached out and asked to spread the word. Each was very grateful for the impact in their lives and the guiding principles that shaped their own delivery of care and research. The Forbes Norris Award is not just a recognition of excellence, it's a continuation of Dee's mission to serve this community with science and with heart and with relentless determination. I would like to share my own story, and apologies to those of you that were there this weekend because it's the same story, but why Dee meant so much to me, not just in my professional capacity, but in my personal life as well. My own life was shaped by Dee's work even before I knew her. My mother lived with ALS in the early 2000s and received outstanding multidisciplinary care in Toronto, care that was built on the principles that Dee and Ted championed. I have always posited that my mom lived an extra 18 months longer than she would have if not for the excellent care she received that improved her quality of life. And when I finally met Dee, years later, she was exactly as so many had described her: brilliant, curious, funny, and unfiltered in all the best ways. From the moment she swept me up in conversation until the late-night pizza and wine we shared in a very modest hotel lobby, I knew I was in the presence of someone extraordinary. As we laughed and debated, it was clear we were kindred spirits in one thing above all, that truly ending ALS M&D will take the whole world. She met celebrities. Sarah Ferguson is in one of the photos that I shared on the tribute site. She met world-renowned scientists, even Stephen Hawking, which has already been mentioned. He was the first patron of the Alliance, and she treated them all with the same warm curiosity. What mattered to her were people and purpose. Dee's legacy is everywhere, in the clinics that treat ALS M&D as a whole person disease, in the network of the Alliance that spans nearly 40 countries, in every clinician who centers care and humanity, in every person living with ALS M&D who has more support, more options, and more hope today than they would have had 30 years ago. Everyone in the ALS field who believes in global collaboration matters. You are standing on the shoulders of Dee Norris. To Dee, thank you for your vision, thank you for your courage, and thank you for changing what is possible for people living with ALS, M&D. Dee's legacy is in our hearts, and her memory is a blessing.
I think most of you know me. I'm Dallas Forshew, and I knew Dee for over 40 years, and I have the remnants of a cold that is not contagious, but I have a cough that starts up when I talk. I'm going to be very brief. I'm going to read 2 poems and an email from Linda DeMello, former executive director of the Bay Area ALS Association, who wrote, "The following is my brief reflection about Dee and the many gifts of the experience. I have had the privilege of working with exceptional colleagues throughout my career, but none more extraordinary and inspiring than those who cared for ALS patients and their families. My 9 years of service through our ALS chapter taught me what is most important in life, and the courage, tenacity, commitment, humor, and love required to live with it with purpose. I continue to be grateful for this and for the many gifts of wisdom I received. As we all realize, Dee was exceptional in so many ways. Her lifelong dedication to providing the highest quality of care for people living with ALS was truly the purpose of her life. Her example and the examples of valued colleagues, families, and volunteers with whom I had the privilege of working have continued to inform my work at the University of South Florida College of Nursing and most recently as a trustee of Empath Health. Be assured that I join you today in celebrating Dee for her global leadership in the treatment and care provided for ALS patients and families, her support of phenomenal ALS clinicians and researchers, and her skill and generosity in hosting great parties, fabulous dinners, and sharing very fine wine and scotch. With my gratitude to Dee and to so many of you gathered today, whom I have known as colleagues, teachers, and friends, shalom." So that was from Linda. So now, a somewhat irreverent poem. I thought that, I knew that Dee would like that. I hope that you will too. A little bit of humor. Dee believed in reincarnation. I don't know if you know that or not, but she did. She would sometimes say that she felt that she had been reincarnated from, maybe a queen of Egypt or, something like that. It varied from time to time. In any case, reincarnation, Ellen Bass. Who would believe in reincarnation if she thought she would return as an oyster? Eagles and wolves are popular. Even domesticated cats have their appeal. It's not terribly distressing to imagine being Missy, nibbling kibble and lounging on the windowsill. She always said she wanted to come back as a Norris cat. Where was I? But I doubt the toothsome oyster has ever been the totem of any shaman fanning the motherpiece tarot or smudging with sage. Yet perhaps we could do worse than aspire to be a plump bivalve. Humbly, the oyster persists in filtering seawater and fashioning the daily irritations into luster. Dash a dot of Tabasco. Pair it with a dry martini. Not only will this tender button inspire an erotic fire in tuxedoed men and women whose shoulders gleam in candlelight, this hermit praying in its rocky cave, this anachrite of iron, calcium, and protein, is practically a molluscan saint, revered and sanctified, body and salty liquor of the soul, the oyster is devoured, surrendering all, again and again, for love. And Dee had a lust for life and loved life. And as John mentioned, never forgot her sweetie lover man, Ted. Mary Oliver wrote, "When Death Comes." When death comes like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me and snaps the purse shut, when death comes like the measles pox. When death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering, what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness? And therefore I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood, and I look upon time as no more than an idea, and I consider eternity as another possibility, and I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy, and as singular, and each name a comfortable music in the mouth, tending, as all music does, towards silence, and each body a lion of courage and something precious to the earth. When it's over, I want to say all my life I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I have made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world. Thank you.
My name is Bob Miller. Can you hear me? This is my wife, Christine. I had the privilege of serving as the director of the Norris ALS Center for a number of years that began in the late 90s, went into the current decade. It was the passing of Ted that began my stay in the driver's seat, and it was on his deathbed that Ted sent for me to take the reins of the and it was the hardest decision I've ever made, but it was the most rewarding one. What I would like to say is that Dee was a remarkable human being. And it didn't stop there. The other people in the group were incredible. Many of them are here today. It was a privilege and an honor for me to serve with so many of the names that are on the program. Chris is going to complete my remarks and add some of hers. Chris.
So he's getting over a speech challenge, but yes, our families were very close. The last line that Dr. Bob Miller was going to say, Dee was a bulldog at getting the job done, which echoes many of the other, they were quite the, so I'm speaking as Dr. Bob Miller. These are his thoughts. So three talking points. Dee was a source of extraordinary successful fundraising for our patients, clinic service, and research. We became known nationally. She raised millions of dollars. For decades, she initiated and directed the annual bequest campaign, and many grateful patients made bequests and donations with homes and real estate and stocks. And she engaged celebrities, sports leaders, from the SF Giants to the 49ers as some of our most avid supporters. I recall at a 49er game when Dee and I were down on the field at halftime receiving a grand honor from the 49er Association. Afterward, Dee and I shook hands with Will Clark and some of the other football stars, and Dee turns to me, "Did you see how big those hands were?" And we all realized that's why they catch the football. Their hands are 3 times the size of ours. I want to say especially that Dee's mentorship helped me launch my Bob's Biker annual fundraising event that continues today every September. Dee and I started the Red Band Never Give Up idea, and imagine how many patients of ours also participated. I know many of you rode and ride, and so did I, and the best part were the number of patients that were also participating. Dee's fundraising success was inspired by advocating for the people who walk through our clinic doors, which echoes a number of the other speakers. She really worked hard to ensure their voices were amplified, heard, and understood, and cared for by our excellent, excellent team. Point number 2, Dee was relationship and connection focused. Embedded deeply in her work was her consistent goal of connection. For researchers, staff, and clinicians, our team, our amazing team, our priority goal was to expand their collaborative relationships. Remember so many parties and gatherings to support collaboration and fun times. I think it was the white elephant game that really got everybody going and having lots of fun. Her laugh illuminated any room and gave us an effervescent, warm feeling. Being around Dee, she wasn't just a person you knew, it was someone you felt. Lastly, I have so many memories of Dee as a Renaissance woman, an intellectual, an adventurer, and we know from our variety of ways that we've been with Dee, she supported the Cheetah Foundation. Her culinary talents were legendary to the point that we went ahead and provided some of her favorite recipes for you. And I think the only reason she made the pomegranate pudding was so we left the recipe crème anglaise for one. I think she liked the sauce on the pomegranate as much as whatnot. But we had lively discussions in so many different ways. And the Kellencini family, the Norris family, we all got together and enjoyed one another's company. And of course, we all heard about her cars. I agree, we didn't see her driving it that much, but I know she took a lot of people out. But I would say it was music that Dee and I had so many times together. And you know the music. I really wanted to play Patsy Cline along with Bach and classical music. Dee and I, speaking of music, partnered for over 5 years as fellow cello students, being frustrated with the tuning and the practice, but really enjoying with great excitement our performances and attending concerts. Dee would turn to me and cheer me on and say, "Imagine, we're the only two families that keep a piano in the living room." So to close, we're all here celebrating you, Dee, the unique way your legacy lives on, your cutting-edge vision for collaborative, multidisciplinary healthcare, exceptional fundraising accomplishments, and sharing your diverse, fun, and exciting passions with us all. Bless you, Dee. I continue to deeply cherish and relish our professional and personal friendships. I was doing so well. I miss you more than words can say. We all are so grateful to know you. Done.
Well, thank you all for coming, and I want to thank Amber. I'm going to get emotional. It happens. I'll be forever grateful to Amber for bringing Dee into my life. But first, I'm going to take you back and try to paint the scene. So we were in our very early 30s. We had just started dating, and I called Amber up and I said, "Okay, what do you want to do today?" She said, "I was thinking about heading over to my cousin's in Marin." I said, "Okay, great." So we hopped in the car. We got probably halfway across the Golden Gate Bridge, and maybe that was the point of no return. So she turned at me and said, "Okay, a couple things about my cousin. She's absolutely larger than life. She can be kind of intimidating. And oh, by the way, she's about 30 years our senior." So my initial thought was, well, this doesn't sound like a hot date. But she also shared that Dee was absolutely one of her favorite people in the world, and that was good enough for me. So, then the nerves kicked in, and I started thinking, okay, well, what if she doesn't like me? And what does she mean by larger than life and kind of intimidating? But we got there, and we immediately hit it off and had one of those just epic, legendary days with Dee that so many of you have had over and over. We spent time in her house, on her deck, drinking wine, making a beautiful meal, toasting to her sweetie lover man, as she often did. She told us stories of meeting Pavarotti and the time that she was at a beautiful dinner in Italy with Ted and some lovely people, and she sat next to someone and just continued to talk about their cats. And afterward, Ted said something like, well, what did you think? How was your dinner? And she said, well, it was fantastic. We just shared stories about our cats, and Ted looked at her and said, Miss Pooh, that was Gucci. And so, like John said, the stories over and over, just the most wonderful stories. We had so many of those epic days, so many nights, sharing her wine, listening to her stories. We even had the immense pleasure and honor of having our wedding reception on her deck at her house 21 years ago this week. So, as Amber predicted, Dee absolutely became one of my favorite people in the world. And she shares that spot with our boys too. She's absolutely their favorite aunt. Don't tell my sisters. And maybe most of all because of all of the expletive-laced stories that she regaled them with. And, we'd kind of look at her sideways and she'd say, well, oh, burp. They've heard worse on the playground. And she was right, of course. She most of the time was. So I don't know how to quantify this loss other than to say with absolute certainty that having known Dee, having loved Dee and having been loved by Dee was and is one of the great honors of my life. Thank you again.
I'm going to do my best. Can you guys hear me? Great. I'm going to do my best to get through this without falling apart. But I do want to draw your attention to outside. It's sunny. We drove from Portland, Oregon on Friday, and the fog has been relentless. It's been freezing, which I forgot how cold it is here. I didn't bring the right clothes, but it's sunny, which makes me feel like, of course she's here. She brought the sun. She's always with me, but I think she's definitely here. So I just wanted to point out, it's sunny. Dee's here. I wanted to thank you all for coming today. Hearing from all of you has just really kind of meant everything to us. And, Dee was an extraordinary woman. I can't emphasize that enough. She was one of a kind. She touched countless lives, truly across the globe. And I've got to say, that is really a life well lived. Just unbelievable. During her illness, which was so fast and furious, every person that reached out to us shared the same exact phrase. She was a force of nature. And indeed she was. When I moved from New York to San Francisco, almost more than 25 years ago, I spent a lot of my free time with Dee. I didn't have any friends in San Francisco. My home office was in New York, so I didn't have an office that I could go into in San Francisco, so I was kind of floating out there on my own. And so I spent a lot of time with Dee. I would take my chocolate lab, throw her in the car, and drive over and spend a lot of time with Dee. And I had a really difficult time adjusting from the East Coast to the West Coast, very different cities. And you know, she really showed me the way. I wanted to move back to New York, but she said, absolutely not. You are not moving back there, Cousin Amber. So, you know, she really, through this period of time, she really awakened my senses. I must have been kind of stumbling through life, just static. And you know, after spending time with her, I experienced food differently. I listened to music differently. I looked at, nature, flora, fauna. My whole life became Technicolor. It changed, and I'm forever grateful. She was unstoppable. One of a kind. I'm really still in a state of shock that she's gone. And frankly, I'm kind of mad, you know. I'm just wasn't quite, I don't think any of us were ready. Are you ever ready? But I was really, it wasn't supposed to happen like this. She had the warmest, most beautiful smile and the most infectious laugh. And I think if you were lucky enough to be loved by her, you won the lottery. I mean, she was all heart. I'm forever changed by her presence, and I miss her deeply. My heart and mind have not aligned. They're still disconnected. I find myself in this strange space of disbelief and then falling back into reality. The loss is really immense. I'm still trying to process that she's truly gone. We called each other cousin. I'm also from Texas. I don't know if I have much of an accent, as big an accent as she does, but when we were together, the accent really camped up. There was a lot of sing-song between us. And, you know, I think it's really important. I really want to say that she was my constant. She was my stable, supportive, loving mother, the mother I never had. And as many of you know, sometimes our chosen family members can be our best family members. I chose her, and she chose me. She was my rock, my confidant, my sweet, sweet cousin. It was one of my greatest honors of my life to be with her until the end. And she did it her way. I don't know if everyone knows, but she passed on the anniversary of her Sweetie Lover Band's passing on June 18th. She did it her way. I think, you know, really that's something that feels too poetic to be coincidence. One couldn't script it more beautifully. And so I thank you all for being here. And it's just really been amazing hearing from everyone. So thank you, cousin.
Thank you for the beautiful music and for all the heartfelt sharing. You've painted such a full picture of this wonderful life. Sometimes in these services, we open up a time of sharing to all those who are gathered, but I know you have a great reception awaiting you, and there'll be plenty of time for fuller sharing there. So we're going to shift that to the time you'll be doing some toasting, and we don't want to hold you back from that. So we'll do that then. Instead, I'll simply offer a closing blessing. We'll sing the first verse of the closing hymn, and then I'll offer a benediction and invite you all to continue the celebration. Let us pray. Holy One, we are awash in images, memories, and tributes of one who meant so much to so many. We've been filled by this sharing. So even if our hearts are heavy, they've been lifted by this time of honoring. And in that way, it's been joyful as well as sad. We honor the life of Dee Norris, the impact she has had and is continuing to have. We call to mind those who knew her well and loved her, those who are known to us, and the countless others who've been helped, whose names we do not know, through her advocacy, her tireless work, her caring and relationship building. We pray for all those who mourn her loss. Bless family, friends, colleagues, patients. O great mystery at this occasion of death, when what lies beyond is not fully known, we imagine a joyful reunion between her and her husband, with whom we are told she was communicating in her final days. And maybe, just maybe, there's a line quite a bit longer of people no longer sick, no longer stricken, no longer silenced, there to greet her, to offer an embrace and a steady word of thank you. There to be with her in fellowship until perhaps she returns again, be it as a cat or an oyster. Amen. And one verse of hymn 649. Now receive this blessing. Deep peace of the running wave to you. Deep peace of the flowing air to you. Deep peace of the quiet earth to you. Deep peace of the shining star to you. Deep peace of the Son of Peace to you. Amen.